Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we are looking at the Draftkings and Fanduel week number 5 first look picks. As always, if you guys enjoy the videos, appreciate the like button for me. Subscribe if you haven't already. It was a great week 4. Sunday was awesome. Keep it rolling into this week 5 main slate. 12 games. Let's go ahead and get started. If you want to join us, you can visit the website. Link is down below. Check out Twitter to stay updated and stay connected. So looking at the implied totals, we have multiple teams north of high 20s. We have the Bills at over 30, currently implied total. Bills on the main slate, 31. Bucks second highest on the main slate with 28, followed by the Eagles, and then you have a little bit lower for the Jags, Saints, etc. Looking at the quarterback pricing, top end, Josh Allen looks great. He's at home going up against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh still has their defense is still strong, but they're separate until they get Watt back. It's going to be a lot less intimidating for opposing offenses, especially for a team like Buffalo at home. Coming off of a couple of games where Josh Allen hasn't played his best. He still put up the fantasy points because of his rushing stats last game, but he only threw for 213 yards, but they ended up getting the win, which is all that matters, but it's a completely different defense that he's facing compared to last week. Then we got Jalen Hurts. He's a 100 less. He's going up into Arizona. This is probably still the most difficult matchup. Eagles have had a very easy first 4 games. They have a very easy schedule, which I will take. So this probably is the most difficult matchup they've had because they face Jacksonville at home. They face Minnesota at home. They're going on the road to Arizona, who's looked a little bit better recently. Then you got Kyler Murray there. He's 74. Probably won't get as much ownership as the top 2 guys, so he could be good, interesting for tournaments. You have Herbert on the road in Cleveland. He looked good last game. We'll see if they get Keenan Allen back. I still like some other quarterbacks. Then going at 71 for Herbert, I'd rather get up to these running quarterbacks or go down. We have some values. So after Jerry Jones says that Dak Prescott might make his return, doesn't look like it. He's not able to grip the football. Possibly will make the return the following week when they face the Eagles. If not, hopefully he makes his return as soon as possible. But they haven't missed they look better, I guess, with Cooper Rush in there. He's 4-0 in his 4 starts that he's made. 3-0 this year. You have Jared Goff, who played really, really well. He was one of the most highest scoring quarterbacks. I think Geno Smith outscored him by a little bit on Sunday, but put up 37. Probably won you a lot of money if you played him. I ended up getting one lineup with him on the DraftKings early slate that I posted. But right at 6K, Tom Brady. The Bucks have a high total. Price tag is appealing. Finally looked good last week, even though they lost the game. But at least they were able to move the football. They got their weapons back. Chris Godwin made his return. Julio Jones played. Mike Evans played. So, if they have that trio, which looks like they will, I think Jones currently has like a Q tag, but he should be good to go. But at least they have Godwin and Evans, the 2 main weapons for Brady, especially this year now that he doesn't have Rob Gronkowski to rely on. So he's the quarterback that I'm looking at $6,000 in cash games, even in tournaments. I like him. Going a little bit cheaper if you wanted to go in the 5K range. You have like GPP-worthy options in like Tannehill, possibly Trevor Lawrence against Houston. Looks somewhat appealing. And it's pretty much it. Maybe Zach Wilson down at 53 against Miami, whose defense has given up some big games. Just for tournaments, like I say, you don't really have much confidence in Zach Wilson in cash games, but they are also not going to have Tua this week, so it could be a lot closer than usual. Moving on to the running backs. Top end, Eckler finally broke out. He was a great option. Didn't end up getting to him, although I did highlight him in the final look video. Just made a mistake there. I went to Najee Harris instead, and that was a big disappointment. Cost us about over 20 points, like 27, about that. But $7,800 for Eckler. Finally got the touches last week, got 19 after getting just 12 the week before that. He only had 4 carries, but the game kind of was out of hand. Jacksonville just piled up the points on them. They couldn't run the ball much in the second half. Different matchup here, Cleveland. About middle of the pack so far this year against the rush. And Eckler he's not just a guy that's going to run the ball. He's going to catch passes. So I don't mind him at all. 78. I'll put him in for right now. A little bit cheaper, you have Dalvin Cook. $7,300. Still waiting for that breakout game this year for Dalvin Cook. He's just not been that involved in the receiving game. He's still getting the carries. Touchdowns haven't really been there. Only one. Matchup is okay against Chicago. They're at home at least. But I prefer getting to Eckler for 500 more, going down to some of these guys. We have Fournette at 69. He looks pretty appealing. If Alvin Kamara is able to play this week, At 66, he's missed some time, but that is one of the cheapest price tags we'll get for him, so he would be a guy I try to get to. And then we have Jamal Williams, who was a must-play last week, put up 27. Awesome, him and Hawkinson, once they got Chark and St. Brown and all those guys were ruled out, they became great plays. And this week I'm going back to him at 65. Price tag came up slightly, but it's still a good matchup. Patriots bottom 5 against the rush so far this year, and Williams only had 1 catch for 1 yard last week, but he can be involved in that a little bit more. Other guys would be Dameon Pierce, who after week 1 where he didn't really get that many snap counts, his snap counts have been over 50% each of the last 3 weeks. The last couple weeks he's been north of 60%, I believe. Last week played about 68% of snaps, and he had that long touchdown run, 75 yarders. He also had 6 receptions. Didn't go for much yardage, but at least he's getting those opportunities, so that's a great sign. So he looks good at 62. I like James Conner a bit. At 63, he's losing some. He's splitting some more snaps than he was last year with Williams and Benjamin, and maybe some injury that he's dealing with was playing into that because he wasn't completely healthy. But matchup is tough against Eagles' rush defense, but the price tag is appealing. So it could be like a tournament option, but the matchup is scary for me to play him in cash games. Below $6,000, Khalil Herbert, depending on the Montgomery news, would be a guy that we can look to. Not looking to play the Cowboys running backs against the Rams. And we'll see if Jeff Wilson at 55 could be viable. Depending on the Rams running backs, Akers is 56, Henderson is 55. They weren't able to get anything going last night, but a lot of different matchup going up against Dallas. 49ers have a tremendous front 7. And that's pretty much it. Don't see anybody else unless we get some more news. We'll see if Brian Robinson is able to make his return, but I don't know if they'll put him out in terms of getting a ton of work in his first game back. But he could play this week. We'll see. He might be limited, but if not, and he gets to start, could be a flyer at 48. On to the wide receivers, we have a studded top 4. I say top 3 because Hill is going to be with Bridgewater, so he gets a downgrade. But Cooper Kupp, Jefferson, Diggs. Diggs has the best matchup out of the top 3, but even last night, Kupp, 19 targets, 14 receptions. Almost had another 30 fantasy points, even without getting a touchdown, which is just insane. Second tier, we have A.J. Brown, Marquise Brown, and St. Brown, all the Browns within a few $100s of each other. A.J. Brown would be my favorite, followed by Marquise Brown. And St. Brown, we'll see if he's able to play this week. If he's in, then he looks appealing, but right now, ankle issue. See how he fares once we get the injury report later this week. But we have Tom Brady. You might as well pair him with some of his weapons. We have Evans at $6,900. He looks awesome. Atlanta's pass defense is terrible. You can do a double stack with Tom Brady. Look even Fournette if you wanted to do that. Like triple stack. This is probably one of the weeks where a buck stack is going to be the way to go, in my opinion. And I'm going to pair him with Chris Godwin at $5,900. 10 targets 2 nights ago against the Chiefs in week number 4 after missing a few. Looked really good. Didn't look tampered by his hamstring issue at all. And at $5,900 in this type of matchup, it's very tough for me to get away from Chris Godwin. So that's the first receiver I like. Another one that I like, just given the matchup, is Robert Woods at 52, just because Treylon Burks unfortunately went down. He's going to miss multiple weeks. And they were already very thin at the wide receiver position. So now Robert Woods is going to be the main guy to get the targets. They have Nick Westbrook to kind of fill, I guess, Burks' role, but they're not getting much production for the tight ends. They're not getting much production from the other receivers. Now that Burks is out of the picture for a few weeks, so Woods has been somewhat reliable. 4 catches in 3 straight games, back-to-back, double-digit fantasy points. The matchup is awesome. Washington's pass defense is terrible, and they should be able to move the ball. So unless Henry goes for 350 yards on the ground, I think Woods will be able to be a factor in the passing game and possibly have touchdown upside at a very reasonable price tag at $5,200. Other guys in the 5K range would be like Garrett Wilson. At his price tag looks okay. We'll see how his connection fares with Zach Wilson as those two kind of get up to speed together. Going up a little bit further, we have Tyler Lockett, who I like as well. He was popular last week. He still had a good game, 14 fantasy points. He's been consistent with Geno Smith, which is good to see. He's gotten almost 30 targets last 3 weeks combined. Going up against the Saints, so you should probably expect Marshawn Lattimore to be on DK Metcalf. That could leave Lockett open and getting some more. And with Geno Smith, they've still been able to move the ball downfield. He's put up some good game passing. So if Lattimore is able to slow Metcalf down a little bit, because they Lockett having some opportunities to make some plays, maybe get a long reception. At the tight end position, your pay up is like, depending on the St. Brown news, Hockenson would be viable. He'd be a great play if St. Brown is out. We have the rematch. Well, we have Ertz. Zach Ertz making his a return against his former team of the Eagles, which he spent most of his career. He's 48. He's been benefiting just without Hopkins and them missing like more for the first few weeks, and Green missed last week, so he hasn't gotten under 10 fantasy points. Matchup is tough. Eagles defense has played strong. I probably like Goddard more than him, and then Kyle Pitts been a big disappointment this year. Gets a good matchup against Tampa. We saw they've been letting teams go up and down the field a lot of the games. Last week Mahomes, but he's kind of a different specimen. So they weren't able to slow him down at all. They've had some success week before that against the Rodgers. But Pitts 44, price tag is appealing. And then I like Higbee against Dallas. Just been getting so many targets and so many opportunities. 14 targets for him last night. And then another one would be like David Njoku, $3,800. He's kind of had a good connection the last few weeks, even though he lost a fumble last week. They went right back to him in the next series, so he's pretty safe, I'd say. Fine matchup at home against the Chargers. It's been him. Cooper only had one grab last week, but those two have been kind of the main guys for most of the season. Cooper's had 2 good weeks and 2 poor weeks. Njoku's had back-to-back strong weeks, so tight end position, he looks pretty strong. Then all the way at the bottom, potentially you can look to like Disley for tournaments or like Evan Ingram. Defenses this week, starting with the paydowns. Bears look pretty appealing at 23, even though they're on the road, but Kirk Cousins does have some turnover issues, as we know. Going up a little bit further, you can go to maybe like the Seahawks against Andy Dalton. If Winston's not able to return, even if Winston does play, like you can look to him. He's not 100%. And Winston's also very turnover prone. The Jets against Bridgewater. Now that Tua is ruled. Actually, we'll see about Tua. He was ruled out. Oh, yeah, he's already been ruled out for this week. So, yeah, that's what I thought. So they ruled him out early. Hopefully he makes his return the following week. And then your pay-up defenses would be like, I guess the Eagles. They've looked awesome. Even though it might be tough to sack Kyler Murray because he's able to move a lot in the pocket and kind of get away from sacks. Going all the way up would be like the Bills. Obviously look amazing against Kenny Pickett. And going up against that defense in Buffalo, Pickett could be in some trouble early and often. And that's basically it. Like I would go all the way up would be the Bills, like them more than the Bucks, 49ers. So now this is kind of what I'm looking at right now. Tampa Bay stack looks to be very appealing based on the pricing. So that's it for DraftKings. Let's go ahead and take a look at FanDuel. All right, on FanDuel, top end quarterbacks, Josh Allen, 9,000, followed by Hurts. You have Murray, cheaper than Herbert on FanDuel. Goff, his price tag is way up. He's up to 8,000, so he's tough to get to. Trevor Lawrence is 76, but I like the guy sandwiched in between them. Tom Brady against the Falcons at home. And then we have like potentially like tournament option would be like Zach Wilson. Going way down would be possibly for like Ryan Tannehill, just given the matchup, or Carson Wentz, but he's just not been getting any time back there, and he's kind of, after the first 2 weeks where he was putting up good fantasy points, they're doing some comebacks in those games, but recently just hasn't been able to get anything going. At the running back position, still like Eckler at 9,000. Jamal Williams' price tag is up. He's up to 83. He's similar price to like McCaffrey and Henry. We have one guy that's way too cheap, and that's Dalvin Cook. Right now, he's just $7,300. He's cheaper than Pierce and Fournette and Sanders and James Robinson. Who would have thought we've seen that in week number 5 heading into this year? If Kamara's able to play, he's $7K, so he'd be somebody to keep an eye on. And then we have like Najee is really cheap, but just don't like the matchup and don't like the game. script, especially if Pickett's going to keep taking his touchdowns away when they're inside the 5. So I like Dalvin Cook, and then if I'm paying up for another guy, I like Eckler. Just first 3 weeks were quiet. Had a big game last week. Think it's time that he kind of starts to get going again this year, just based on last week's performance. Wide receivers, once again, the top 2. The top 3, they're all playable. I like Diggs the most given the matchup, but there are some other receivers that I like. So running back might be a spot to pay up this week compared to receiver. On FanDuel in like the 7K range, you have Debo's only 73, so he looks appealing. Mike Evans at 75. I like Chris Godwin at 7K. Pair him with Brady on both sides. We have some values at 6,000 like Gabe Davis. Perfect spot to go to Gabe Davis, I'd say. Tough matchups, and he wasn't 100% with his ankle issues last few weeks. Bad games, and can't get much worse than last week's performance. So matchup is still appealing. They have the highest total on the slate. Gabe Davis' price tag is probably the cheapest it'll be at 6K, so he's a guy that I really like. Then you have Brandon Ayuk at 59. He looks appealing, but I'm going to Robert Woods just because he's like the only guy that's going to catch passes that you have confidence in. You have Westbrook to kind of maybe get some, but not getting much production for their tight ends like I mentioned on DraftKings, and without Burks. Matchup is really strong. I do expect Tannehill to be able to move the ball through the air against this Washington defense with pretty ease. Tight ends, one awesome performance by Hawkinson has him at 7,000 on FanDuel, so he'd be a little bit tough to get to. Once again, I like Njoku, Goddard at 61, Higbee, the guys that are getting targets and have been involved in getting some red zone targets and just have been a part of the game script is where you definitely want to be looking at for your tight ends and have some decent matchups. Defenses, pay up once again is the Bills. Your pay downs are the Saints, potentially against Geno Smith. Further down would be possibly the Patriots if you want to take them at 36 against Detroit, but they've been moving the ball. It's just been their defense has not been able to stop anybody. Like they've had a chance to be 3-1 or 4-0 if things went their way, if they're able to stop anybody defensively. Seahawks right at 31. They look decent, I'd say. And mid-range would be looking at potentially like the 49ers against Baker in that offense. They've looked brutal, but that's pretty much it. FanDuel looks a little bit different than DraftKings. Just Gabe Davis had a great price tag, and Dalvin Cook right now is just really cheap. But that's it for the first look. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know who you guys like this week. We'll get a lot more clarity as we get more injury news throughout the week, and stay tuned for more videos. But thank you for watching. Best of luck, and I will see you all next time.